Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Lockdown with Lumix. I'm Kevin Best. I thought I would, take the time and show you guys some post. I know I haven't really gone over anything in post, and I wanted to show you guys just how powerful shooting in Vlog and 4210-bit really is. So here I have this clip that I shot with the S1 with the Filmmaker's upgrade. It's going to get you 4210-bit and Vlog. So what I have here is just a clip of someone walking in the woods. It was a really foggy day, and I thought I would take some time to color grade it, which is one of my passions. Since it was foggy, it was dark, it was gloomy, I wanted to create a really stylized, kind of mysterious look. And this really wouldn't be possible if I didn't have the room to work with when shooting in 4:2:10-bit and Vlog. What log is, let me just show you guys what the original clip looked like. So this is log, which it looks like nothing. I mean, it's super neutral, super grayed out. But what this is going to do is it's going to give you the most dynamic range to work with, and it's like a giant slab of marble, and you can create anything out of it. So I'm just going to kind of go over each individual node and kind of just show you guys what I was able to do with some of this S1 footage. So to begin, this is a pretty classic node tree that I like to work with. It just allows me to keep everything separate so I can go back to it, I can tweak it, it just keeps everything nice and organized. So the first node I always work with is my exposure. So you can see when I turn this on, what it's automatically doing, it's giving me really nice contrast to work with. I know it still isn't cranked down as much as it could be, but I want some room to work with. So before we can really see the exposure of log, it kind of just sits in the midtones and has virtually no contrast at all. But this is what you want, because you can still have all the information in the highlights and all the information in your shadows. So we added contrast. This just kind of gives us a little bit of pop, something to work with that can, set us up for some of these later nodes. The next one, as we can see, it's super desaturated, so I have a saturation node. Once I throw that on, and again, I didn't really crank it all the way, just enough to kind of separate some of these colors. So as you can see, we're just able to bring out some of the leaves, the hat, the pants, just some colors if I want to go in later and, extract them. So moving on, we just did a little bit of white balancing. This clip didn't need a lot, but one way you can white balance is by looking at your parade. So as you can see, this is a really nice, even white balance. We can even check our waveforms, and what you can see here is everything's white up top and at the bottom. That just lets you know that you've nailed your white balance. So you can see before how these blues are really coming up in our highlights up here. So we can bring them down and just kind of evens everything out, so you can have a clean slate to work with as you move forward. So this next node I didn't even touch, which is a white balance adjust. This is if you have a clip that's just been completely botched in terms of white balance, and I really need to get in and start working with the individual parameters. But this clip was relatively white balanced, so it was easy to kind of just do a little bit of tweaking and move on from there. So moving on, these two nodes are going to be my leaves and my pants. These were clips that I wanted to extract the color from, so when I go and do a super stylized look, I can save these colors and I can work with them individually rather than having them exist throughout the entire look. And what this is going to do, it's going to create a really realistic look. Even if it's super stylized, this allows the audience to believe that our subject exists in this environment. So moving forward, we have our look. And as you can see, it's super blue and it's kind of taken over everything. Like I lost the color in my leaves, you can see from before. But what I can do is, since I've qualified both of these, I can then create layers and say, hey, I don't want, my stylized look to interfere with my leaves. So what I can do is I can bring them back. So as you can see, before and after, we're able to bring back that natural color of the leaves. Same thing with the pants. So now I can keep everything natural. It's starting to look really good. Like, this is already, right off the bat, a really nice look, because we have these nice cool fog and we have nice warm leaves. So we have nice color contrast. Really only two colors do exist in this entire frame, which is our blues and our oranges, which are really nice contrasting colors. So this is just my look adjustment. This is going to allow me to change maybe the color of the fog a little bit, really just help accentuate the style that I was going for. So as you can see, we added a lot of contrast. This node right here really starts to hone in on that style that we're going for. So really cranked the contrast, and started changing the color of the fog and accentuate once again the leaves. So we're really starting to bring that look in. Moving on, this is probably one of my favorite nodes as a vignette, and people usually use it as your classic oval that just creates like a center framed exposure, and that's not really what you want. You want to be able to grab around your subject and then create a vignette, so you can really allow the audience to just look right at the subject. So let's turn that on, so you can see just right off the bat how much that's really drawing your eye to the subject and helping create this mood that we're going for. So the next node it's an outside vignette. So what it's going to do is I control anything that's within the vignette. So let's turn that on, and it's probably hard for you to see, but we're adding just a little bit of exposure right where we selected outside of the vignette. So this is a negative fill node that I usually use. Because this isn't lit with negative fill, I really don't have to worry about it. I can always use it for something else, but for this look I didn't really need it, so I just kind of left it off. So moving around to our next node, this is our sharpness. The lens I was using was the Panasonic 24-105, which is already a pretty sharp lens, but I just really want to bring out the detail of our subject, and I'm going to be accentuating the fog and adding film grain, so I really want to sharpen our image first so we can bring out some detail. So this actually does quite a lot. You can actually see, if I do a before, everything's really soft, and after we're just popping the details, especially in the jacket, just bringing out some nice detail, even in the trees. So we're just going to bring out a little bit more detail before we go and start softening our image. So the next one's going to be fog. What this is doing is just creating a nice softening effect, which is under here, so it's a blur. We're just mildly blurring the fog that's happening, and you can see I just selected kind of our highest points in exposure, because that's really where the fog exists. So as you can see, before, everything's kind of really sharp and still has that contrast, and we just had this fog, so it's going to help really accentuate the mood that we're going for. So moving on, I just added a slight film stock to it, and what it's going to do is really make a cinematic look. It's going to create really nice highlight roll off. It's going to kind of bring down some of the oversaturated elements in the frame. So as you can see, we're bringing down a little bit of the saturation. It's just, we want to still create a believable look, even if it's going to be incredibly moody. So next, this is my last node. This is my global adjustment. So I always create a node at the end to where I can just tweak any little things that I see that I might have missed or want to accentuate, or this is usually a node that I use to make sure that my blacks are black and my whites are white. And what that's going to do is it's going to help the audience believe in the style that you've created. Because if you didn't have, if your shadows weren't black and your highlights weren't white, it's just hard for them to really dive into the look that you're creating. So as you can see, I just lifted the exposure a bit. I brought, my shadows back down to their darkest points. Same thing with my highlight. So as you can see, just a little bit more pop. If I wanted to, I could bring it down, because If I was to drag a clip from like a Hollywood movie, the highlights wouldn't even be this high. They would be down a little bit even farther. So they might exist somewhere around like here, and sometimes even lower. But for this image, I don't want to take it too far, but I'm starting to really like this. If anything, I might want to bring out the saturation of the leaves. So what I can do is I can go back to where I've selected just the leaves. And what I can do is I can just add a little bit more saturation to really pop the color of the leaves. So, I mean, the before and after, you can really see how much color we're able to bring out. Now, I want to go back to the point of 422 10-bit and Vlog and why it's so important. And I know a lot of people who shoot video don't even use it or even know it exists. And color grading is becoming a huge part of digital filmmaking and digital cinematography. And without the knowledge of color grading, you're really just not able to bring out the most in your footage. And this is why I've taken the time and I've learned the color grading process. If you don't know about DaVinci Resolve, I cannot recommend it enough. It's by far the best color grading software on the planet. It is the industry standard. It's what all the professionals are using. And it just has all the tools needed to create whatever style you want. And I know this all might look super convoluted, but a couple YouTube tutorials, some reading, and you'll really start picking up all the tools that are available to you. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you're all staying safe out there. I plan on doing another tutorial soon. I have the S1H with me, so I thought I would do something along the lines of just showing how powerful 6K footage is and how you can use it to your advantage. So stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you guys for tuning in.